Hey, Willingdon Young Adults, it is so great to be with you again, and we are continuing on in our series on relationships. And today we're going to be talking about marriage. And we have some special guests today, Dave and Rushia Klassen, and they have an extensive history of marriage. They've been married for 35 years and also have spoken at marriage conferences and helped other people in counseling marriage. So they just have a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. And, cool fact too, Dave is the chaplain of the Vancouver Canucks and BC Lions. And so he understands young people, he understands how the world works, and just has so much to speak into that as well. And I'll let them share more about this as well, but Rushia is also the smart one in the relationship, apparently. But with that being said, welcome Dave and Rushia. It's so great to have you both here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for making the trip from Abbotsford. Love it. So why don't you guys tell us a bit about how you met? I mean, we all love a good love story and, how people met. It's kind of what sells in Hollywood, and we'll just hear how you two met.
All right, why don't you start?
Well, we met each other actually in college, and we both played basketball.
Okay.
And she was on the women's team, obviously, and I was on the men's team. And there was a couple times a year that the two teams traveled together.
Okay.
And so the guys would always get on the bus as quickly as they could because they wanted the back seats. And if you're big enough and strong enough, you got the back seat. And so I just happened to be that guy that day.
Yeah. Were you the center?
Pardon?
Were you the center or power forward, or what was
I just played basketball. I was just a crazy, hard-working guy. Probably not very talented, but I just outworked everyone.
Hey.
So there I am. I'm in the back with my buddy. We're just kibitzing back and forth. And then this light comes from the front of the bus. I look, and it's just like this angel coming down the middle of the aisle. I was like, oh my gosh, who is that girl? And I turned to my buddy. I go, I'm going to marry that girl. And man, I did. It was like months later, years later, sure enough, we got married. And so it was awesome.
Well, my story's a little different.
Okay.
It's better because she saw this unbelievable guy that she just fell in love with. I just
Dangerous
remember
reverse.
those days.
Yeah.
She ran up to me and put her arms around me and goes,
my.
you're the one, you're the one.
She knew right off the bat.
She knew right off the
I'm gonna
bat,
marry
just like
this guy.
me. It was like,
So not true. So
don't lie in front of the camera.
I was on that bus that day, and my friends were like, "Oh, he's such a cute guy.
Good friend.
You should check him out. You should date him." And I was like, "No, I came to school for an education, not for a relationship, and I am not at all interested in this guy." And yet, for some reason, this guy kept showing up. Whenever I was in the cafeteria, he was there. Whenever I was leaving, he was there. And pretty soon he was showing up with a flower that he picked from someone's garden, roots and all.
Wow.
Just coming to engage in conversation. And over time, started seeing his hard work in the gym, started to see displays of his character, and I was a little intrigued.
Okay.
And so...
Now, when you say over the course of time, how long are we talking here of the hard work ethic?
We were 19, and he was very pursuing, and we got married at 22.
Okay, wow, so you put in some work there.
she lived an hour away.
He did.
It was so hard.
But so rewarding. Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so and what college was it that you were attending?
Okanagan College in Kelowna.
Okay, no way.
Yeah, Dave's hometown, and I was from Enderby, so small community. It was a big city for me, and lots to experience, and
Yeah, so I went to visit her. It was in the summertime because we kind of met. We met, hung around together, group dated in a sense, as both the men's team and the women's team would get together, and that was really informal and actually a lot of fun. So we got to go to dances together and do all these things. So there was really no pressure, except for I continually had my eye on this one. It wasn't any other one, it was just the one. But she was kind of eyeing everything else. And so I just had to continue to throw things in the way. So she would trip my way. You know how that works.
Totally.
And so that's really kind of the way I look at romancing, is just throw things in the way for the girl to trip. And you can either catch them or look at them, and then they pay attention to you. So that's romancing. And so at the end, she was off to Enderby, which is about an hour away from Kelowna, and it was like, we'll see you. And I'm like, well, I'm going to come and visit you. And she's like, nobody ever comes to Enderby. I'm like, no, I'm going to come.
Yeah.
So I remember getting in my car that famous day, and I'm like, I got to go see her. And she said it was a really hard place to find. So I was like, okay. So I got into my car. I knew how to get to Vernon. So I drove, 30 minutes to Vernon. And I was like, I better go to the gas station and I better get a map.
Yeah.
Because I got to find out where Enderby is. So, because I didn't have a clue. On the map, it's right off the highway.
Yes,
so I'm
it
like,
is.
okay, I'm lucky. So I'm driving, and I had her address. And in those days, there's no GPS.
Yeah.
And it was a horse and buggy. And no, I'm just kidding. So I'm driving in my truck, and finally, I'm like, okay, well, here's the address. I'm like, okay, well, here's her house. She lived right on the highway. So there you go.
Super
It was an easy.
convenient.
I was easy to find.
And was that the day that you knew he was the one? Was that when you saw his glowing light? And
No, I think over time.
Yes, is that?
It took time. It took time because
Yeah.
I had been in relationships before,
Yeah.
and I had goals and dreams, and
Yeah.
I was going after them. And I did not expect to find someone that would be such a lifelong partner that would complement me and would just really help us grow together in that journey. So yes, it was a surprise.
Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible. Yeah. No.
And I think for me too, the question you asked is really interesting because for me, I'd also dated or had spent time with other people and realized who I didn't want to marry.
Yeah.
And so when Rushia came along, it was like, love at first sight in the concept of, I saw her like, whoa, that's some looking girl. But then as I got to know her, there's these things about her that really attracted me to her. And I was like, well, she's missing the things I don't like, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And she's got a whole bunch of things I never thought about, and it's really attractive. And so I just kept going, man, I want more. Like, this is awesome. So
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
As the journey went on and the deeper things got, you realized it was actually compatibility. Like there was a respect and admiration, not just like, oh, dang, she's so attractive. She's got all these issues, but I'll put up with them because she's so attractive. It was
Right.
actually like, no, I really admire who she is.
Yeah, and I think over the long-term dating, like we had some long-distance dating at times too. So you have to get to know each other differently, and you have to invest in really pursuing, but also really intentionally, examining. Is this what you really want? Are you both going in the same direction? Are you both seeking the same thing? And yeah, so we just really grew together, which was really great.
And then I think along the way, there's some things that kind of pushed us to ask those questions. Rushia was pursuing a teaching degree. I was pursuing a teaching degree. We're both, we actually ended up going to Simon Fraser. I lived with my brother. She lived with her sister. We lived in the same apartment building, so we saw each other more. And we continued to pursue the relationship. But all along, she was like, I'm going somewhere. And so then when the opportunity came, of her actually finding a job, which was in northern Saskatchewan, it pushed us. It pushed our boundary. It pushed my boundary. I'm like, well, I kind of thought we'd be together all along. Like, well, no, I want to be a teacher. And so it was like, well, do I really want to be with this person? Or is where I am now? And so all along this 3-year journey, which is what we had before we got married, it was such a great place for us to continue to take one step in our relationship and then find out if this is actually what we want. And in the process of that, there's also giving up. There's some things I had to give up. There's some dreams. There's some dreams that Rushia gave up. And in pursuit of each other, or actually in the development or growing in our relationship with one another.
Yeah, another
Yeah,
big nugget
wow.
in the dating and in the pursuing was I became a Christian as a teenager.
Okay.
And but never really was discipled or understood, and really the foundation of a spirit-filled life. So when we met, I was not walking with God in that depth that we actually are today. And so, and Dave was a non-believer. And so
Okay.
he gave his
Yeah.
life to Jesus when he was 21, and we got married when we were 22.
Wow.
And so, but in those decisions of just, okay, faith has got to be part of my journey, and I just don't know how to really do it. I don't know how to live this out. So we ended up inviting other people into our journey, which helped walk with us and help strengthen and help Dave understand that he grew leaps and bounds in those first years of walking with God. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a beautiful story, but it's also a hard story.
Right,
Because you don't want to
yeah.
encourage, and yet I would say that I
Totally.
was not walking with God in the same understanding as I have of him today. That,
Yeah.
where he was part of my whole journey.
Yeah. It's maybe that whole idea of like when we do know better, we can make better choices. But when we don't know better, God still redeems the choices we make.
Yes.
And we make mistakes. We know better and we don't always do it, and God forgives and redeems anyways. But like you said, you had a faith, but it wasn't super deep. So you dated someone who didn't know Christ, but praise God, look at you two now. And you made that decision that like, hey, if I am going to get married, it's going to be to a Christian guy.
Yes.
And so, Dave giving his life to Jesus was obviously a huge affirmation in that.
Yes,
yeah, it's
absolutely.
true. Maybe adding one thing though,
Yeah.
Rushia was pretty strong in her faith.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just not necessarily living her faith.
Understanding how to live it
Or
spirit-filled.
how to live it.
Right.
And in my case,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not,
good.
one thing we probably don't like as much is that, well, you guys were really lucky, because Dad turned out, or Dave turned out to be a good guy and he became a Christian and so on. No, it's a terrible story in a sense if you want to look at that.
Right.
The better story, which is
Yeah.
probably more complete for us, was faith was an extremely important part for Rushia.
Yes.
It was an important enough part where Sunday always involved church. So then when we were in Kelowna, it was the first time I had gone to church outside singing in a choir when I was 8 years old. And I didn't like church after that because the lady who was leading the choir wouldn't let me sing a solo, and I thought I was so good. And then the second reason, right, and the only other reason I wanted to sing in a choir is because 90% were the women, and none of them liked me. So the reality is I was out of there. So after that experience, grade 6 and so on, this is the first time I went into a church, and I'm sitting with the congregation. I didn't even know what the word congregation was.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there now, and the guy's talking about heart, and I'm like, is he talking about me? Like, how does he know that that's my heart? So then there's this intrigue in church. So then when I went to visit Rushia on the weekends all the time, because I was working and I would go visit her on the weekends, church was part of it. So on Sunday. And she was going to one particular church with her mom, her family went to, and we went there. And then her brother and sister-in-law would invite us. So it just happened.
In the evening.
In the evening.
Okay, yeah.
Double.
I was going to say.
So in 3 years, I caught up.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes, he did.
But the point was, I think for me, it wasn't, you better become a Christian if you want to marry her. That wasn't never part of my dialogue.
Right.
It was, faith is important to her.
Yeah.
It's so important to her
Yeah.
that she also wants someone else to pursue that part of her life with her.
Yeah.
So to me, it was, well, I should actually investigate this, because if it's so important to her, then I should actually know about it. I should actually seek it. And so in that case, there was lots of people that came around me especially and said, well, Dave, ask me any question you want. So that was
So
the
good.
good thing. It was, I pursued this, and eventually it became, I actually like this. This is good. There's a lot of good things. And so I think that'd be more of my thought.
Yeah, man, that's so special. That I feel like, in the context today, it's kind of like anything goes.
Right.
It's whatever you want to believe. It's good for you. That's fine. I don't want to believe it myself, but I also don't want to, say that you're dumb for following it. I'll just let you do what you want.
Right.
And for you to actually say, no, it's really important to you, so I actually want to learn more about it and see why. Like that's pretty special.
Well, exactly. But in one sense, it's kind of like dating, and there's these components to our life: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And it's like actually, if you looked at your hands, you have two hands and 2 feet. And if each one represented one of those things, it'd be like going into a relationship with one arm behind your back, or hopping on one foot and not using it.
Yeah.
And then when you get married, go, well, no, I had 2 hands and 2 feet all along. I just never showed you them.
Right.
And the reality is, I want to show you my hand, as the poker player would say, or I want to show you that I'm a complete person here, and that this has made me complete. So the reality is it okay to marry someone that's a non-believer? Well, sure, it's your choice if that's what you want to do.
But there are consequences.
And they're not complete.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's a great analogy. I like that. Well, okay, speaking of marriage, you two have been married for 35 years.
Yes.
And so huge congrats, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And statistically, in Canada, 40% of marriages end in divorce. And I know for a lot of my friends, a lot of people I've known that come from divorced households or really close with people who've been divorced, and they see how devastating the pain of divorce is.
Sure.
It kind of turns them off from this whole idea of marriage. It's like, why don't we just be common law? Why don't we just date? Marriage kind of is losing its value, and people just kind of doubt their ability to follow through with it now. So for yourselves, 35 years, like, what have you done to keep your marriage not only intact, but it's not just surviving, it's strong, it's thriving. Like, how have you done that over 35 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Going back to the kind of the thought of the 40% and the living in this world of divorce. Well, this world's been around for a while. Like I come from a family of turmoil, a family of conflict. Divorce is spread throughout. And I think for me, and as Rushia and I have lived this out, you don't have to live someone else's story. You don't have to live your parents' story. You don't have to live your aunt and uncle. You don't have to live your brother's or your friend's marriage's story. You live your own. God's created you as an individual. You're an individual first with God. You're his child. That's an awesome thing. So therefore, he didn't say you have to live that life, like everyone else. When you even go to the Bible, there's just not really a set out way to actually look after your spouse other than to
love me.
To love you.
Yes, you must love me.
But there's no rules and regulations.
Every day.
I remember when our first son was born, I was like, is there a manual attached to his toe when he comes out? No, there's nothing. There was no manual that when we got married either. In fact, it's almost the opposite in our culture. It's like, go get married, everyone celebrates, and then they leave you alone.
Right.
And it's not like, it's almost like a pat on the butt and go and achieve. And it's like, achieve what? What are we supposed to achieve? And so the reality is you don't have to live someone else's failures. My dad is such a wise guy. I remember one time we were golfing and I'm complaining, Dad, I suck as a dad. I'm no good. I've been doing this wrong. And, and then he just let me complain. And then finally he said, you know what, David? When I was your age, I never thought of whether I was going to be a good dad or a bad dad. I just was. And he goes, you read too much. And I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think there's just way too much information out there.
Right. Second guess everything.
Oh my goodness, things come across your iPhone like 32 ways to become a better spouse or to become a better lover or to become whatever it is. And you can go to, whether it's a magazine that's an e-magazine or something that's on the counter, or it's watching The Bachelorette or The Bachelor, or all these people have so much advice. And Hollywood, we just came through the Christmas season. We're watching the Women's Network, and we're watching all these Hallmark movies. Everything ends with a kiss, everything's right. And it works out perfect. And then you get into this relationship with this beautiful looking woman, and are you kidding me? It just doesn't work out the way you thought it was. And so you don't have to believe that narrative, that fantasy world. Just live in the reality that God's given you and live that one. And it's an adventure. It's awesome.
Write your own love story with God entwined in there. And I think for us too, we've realized that we need shared experiences. And so we've had 4 kids of our own and one that we've chosen. So we've got a lot of things going on in our house where we've shared experiences together, but I need experiences with him that keep connecting. And so whether that's travel, like we have the same vision for what we want in our marriage and our relationships. We are on mission together, and that we just are choosing things to do together with the same goal and direction. And that has really kept us coming back to one another over and over again in 35 years. And then I think on top of that, we have, we like being out exploring new things and discovering new things about each other. And so all of that allows us to just, again, say, wow, we're in this journey together. This is our story. What's next? What's next for us?
And I think there's a concept called deliberate practice. And there's a book, I think, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwin. But his concept is it takes you 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. And so I just take it literal. The reality is, in the deliberate practice concept is, you don't spend all this time practicing after you become an expert. You actually have to put all this time into practice and so on in order to become an expert. So 35 years, like I'm assuming we're getting close to 10,000 hours of practice and all these things.
Yeah.
But we've had to find ways to sharpen our skills, whether it's podcasts or looking at conferences to go to, or even looking at ourselves. The bottom line is, we can do all these things, and then I can go, okay, would you read this and do this because this is what they say you should do? Or it should point back to me, as my coach used to say, for every finger you point at someone else, you have three fingers pointing back at you. And the reality is, what's my responsibility? So it all starts inside me, and so therefore, what are the things that I need to fix, or what are the things that I need to work on? Because I can only give to Rushia what I have. And if I don't have it in me, and I haven't worked in me, or I haven't solved that problem, or I'm searching for something that I think she needs to give me, how can I give her? I don't have room for that. And so I need that as well.
Well, and I think we've, along life's journeys, we've just decided we're lifelong learners.
Yeah.
So we're lifelong learners about God and faith, and we're lifelong learners about each other and ourselves, and we both want to be whole. And so if I work on being whole in all those ways Dave spoke about before, emotional, spiritual, physical, intellectual, what's the next one? There's one more. But anyway, if we work on those areas of our lives, okay, if we work on those areas, if we work on those areas of our lives individually, wow, then I bring a dynamic to our relationship that is really, really good. And so 35 years has been intentional, connecting, sharing, coming back to each other, seeking God, and putting things into practice.
And then there's these moments where you go, I just don't know. Can you help me? Again, we didn't get a manual. And we realized two is not enough. The two of us aren't enough. And again, going back to why am I, and it's not a matter of spending all this time. Like, I love Rushia. I'll do anything for her.
I love you too.
I would lay my life down for her. I would give, I have tried to give her everything I can. But at the end of the day, all those things that I've been trying to do, it's still not enough. God's enough. Because at the end of the day, God is the one that created her. God is the one that created me. And He knows us. And He Himself says, all these things that you do, as much as they're good, they're either going to burn up someplace, and they're probably still not good enough. And the reality is, who am I to think that I am so all-encompassing? Or let's if I really want to take the blame for this, who am I to think that she's going to be so all-encompassing that she's going to solve all my issues or my problems or give me happiness, fulfillment, all these things?
What a weight.
Totally.
Totally.
So God gives us something phenomenal. And this is something I never understood when I was a non-believer dating. But when I saw Rushia's faith so vibrant, that this has got to be, it's so important to her. There's got to be something about it. And when I investigated and then became a Christian, I realized, oh my goodness, it's because it's more than just going to church. God offers us something phenomenal. He offers the power of three, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Someone that loves us, cares for us, and empowers us. Whoa, well now.
Now we can be dynamic.
Totally, Now you're not depending on each other to fulfill yourselves. You're fulfilled by something that is infinitely greater and never ceases. Whereas, we do fail each other all the time. That's so many good concepts there. I did have one quick question, just something you mentioned earlier, Rushia. You said that you love exploring and learning new things together and about each other. And, some people would say, like, okay, 35 years of marriage, is there really anything new to get to learn about each other?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think what else we've learned is that...
Well, she's learned I'm perfect.
Yeah.
It took her 35 years, but she knows it now.
She learned I'm not perfect.
Well, yes, moving on. And so I think also in that, just to make it very clear, we're very different people. And we have very different interests. And so we come together to share, but then we've also freed each other up to be who we are in what we enjoy. So I'm a water person. I need to be on the water. I love to kayak, I love to boat, I love adventures in that way. And Dave will join me, but wouldn't necessarily say it's his first choice.
No, I'm a beach person.
He wants to be
I
on the
like to
beach.
watch people in the water.
Exactly.
And I even wave at her every once in a while.
And so he pursues golf, and we free each other up to pursue those things that actually bring us recreational enjoyment also. But I think in the midst of that, I think we've also found that, there's a lot of things that we can do together that have just been things we didn't know. We didn't know when we traveled together how I want to see every sunrise and every sunset and everything in between. And how he sees it differently, and his needs are different when we travel. And so how can we compromise, and how can we make that work and still enjoy time together? And then how I'm more of a risk taker in some ways than he is. And so how do we bring that all into the dynamic of, like right now we're doing a bit of renovating in our house, and I'm a good decision maker, but I can't make decisions about house things like choosing a countertop, and so little things like that.
So many colors, so many textures,
too many choices, and so we're still discovering so much about each other, because every year has a new season and a new experience and a new opportunity and new people. Our family's expanding, and so we're always bringing in, and we have kind of a home that we love to be open to others, and so every opportunity, every day is an opportunity to learn something new about the person you're with, or to take what you know to a deeper level.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's so good, because I think for a lot of young people, it's kind of like we always want that new thing, that exciting thing, and social media and all that's advertised out there, there's just always more.
Right.
So we think being with the same person for that amount of time, it's going to grow old, and kind of want something new and fresh and exciting. But what you're saying in your experience is that, marriage after 35 years, it's still new, it's still fresh, it's still exciting, if you allow it to be.
Yes.
If you don't, allow it to grow cold and...
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's very true. And we actually see things, it's not polar opposite. Some things we actually are exactly the same. But other things were just way different.
Very different,
So,
yes.
because Rush's, I'm not going to say, well, in one sense, it's almost an insatious desire to change.
Yes. I love change.
So part of going to other countries is just everything is new.
Yes, and
So
exciting.
So change, where we're living now, it's like we could be moving almost every year if Rushia had her way. And it's not that she would have her way in the sense of that, this is what I want.
Yeah.
It's more in the sense of change is important for her.
Yeah.
And she sees it that way. So we could move, in different locations. In my case, I kind of like it, one place, and we put roots in. And what's been cool about the change thing from my eyes is seeing a world wider.
Yeah.
And I think maybe from staying in one area, like in Abbotsford where we live, and laying roots, is also seeing things deeper. So it's almost like we got deeper and wider view of life that we wouldn't have got had we married someone that only saw the way we did, or only lived the way we did.
Or, and if we hadn't invested, like you were saying, the intentional investment of just going, I'm going to try and understand him in this season, in this story, in this scenario, and I'm going to try and hear and see his perspective, so I can actually expand my maybe understanding of him, but enjoyment, but also, wow, why is he so passionate about that right now? And so that never gets old. That never gets dull. If you really want to know at that level. I think that it just takes you to a place where you go, teach me, show me, help me understand you more, and then, what's beyond that we both can do together? And because we come at things so differently often, it's never boring. Lots of excitement in there, which is really good.
And that's love. That's just loving the other person enough to say, okay, that's not my thing, but I want to know more about you. Like, it's no longer a consumer thing that's like, oh, it's not my thing, so I just leave it over there. It's like, no, I love you. Therefore, even though it's not my thing, like, tell me more, show me more. It makes you alive. I see the light shine in your eyes. Like, I want to know this part of you, even though I might never join you in it. It's just like that.
Absolutely.
Or I don't have to join you in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I will
that's so
support you.
good.
Right.
I will support you and I will be there. Like, yeah, I mean, we have lots of stories we could share on how that has played out in our own relationship.
Yeah.
And it's been so beneficial. And I think it's been so freeing then to not feel like you don't lose yourself in your
Yeah.
marriage. I've not lost myself in 35 years of being married to him. If anything, I've discovered more of myself because maybe
Wow.
Dave has seen a passion in me that he's been like, wow, you love that. Why don't you go and, explore that mountain with those people because you
Yeah.
love to be in the woods? Or like, why don't you? And so in doing that, he's actually created opportunity and doors that maybe I didn't even see
Yeah.
or wouldn't have felt there was time in the schedule of family.
Yeah.
But we've made ways for each other and then we've actually reaped the benefit because we've been able to come back and share. Guess what happened on that experience? Or guess what I learned about myself? Or like we've changed in the journey and then that change has been able to be experienced in a deeper, I don't know if it's just love or companionship or friendship or
Well,
care.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
the different experiences brought different culture into our home.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Rushia loves to travel, and I like to travel.
Yeah. You put up with it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes, like especially, it's Super Bowl weekend, so when if there's a commercial, I need to travel up to the fridge and make sure I get something to eat and stuff like that. But no, it doesn't mean I don't like to go out of my country.
Yeah.
But there's been a number of times when it's like, Ru, why don't you go? Why don't you go on that trip?
Yeah.
And so she's come back with like armloads of stuff, and then people sit around the table, and she's got like tea sets and things. This is what we did, and this is what and so we get to share that adventure with her.
Yeah.
And it's not
So good.
it's not like, oh, okay, you had fun and I didn't. It was like, no, you got to go and then bring back and enhance our lives. And so our house is filled with all bunch of different cultural experiences. And then it's the same thing with my job because it involves a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So, I'd go to a different place in the US or I'd go to a different place when I had to travel to the Cameroon. And I'd come back and my lens is going to be different than hers. I would bring back painting or something like that. And I would say, well, this is what this reminds me of. Well, Rushia's experiences tend to be a lot of food or food experiences or little things that would remind her of the people. And mine was of the culture, the ethnicity, and so on. So it's just a different lens.
Wow. Yeah, you guys round each other out in a sense. You're like, same experience, different perspective, fuller expression of it, like fuller visual.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. It does kind of also tie into the next question a bit too about expectations.
Right.
And how, you are clearly different in many ways.
Yes.
And you both obviously had your own history, your own family of origin, all these things that we develop even subconscious expectations. And then we just assume things going into a relationship, and then sometimes we're met with a closed door when we expected something to just be, oh yeah, of course, this is going to be part of a relationship.
Right.
Or of course they're going to be this way, or they're going to do this. Like expectations are so powerful. How did you respond to expectations that were not met? And maybe even, sharing an experience of an expectation you had that was hard for you to work through when you're like, oh, this isn't part of the relationship. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are hard ones because for me coming into the relationship, the example I saw from my parents, what was around me, again, there wasn't a lot of training. It wasn't like people sat me down and said, expect this. And even if they did, I probably wasn't listening.
Right.
Because, and part
Teenager.
no, true. But isn't part of life actually, you don't learn it until you've experienced it?
Yeah.
So the reality is I wasn't even there mentally or in a mature way. And so I think my expectations were really low for marriage. It was like, we get along, we spend, 6 to 8 hours a day together, I'm happy, she's happy, she agrees with everything I say for the most part. Like if it's like ice cream, we might disagree, she'll choose, vanilla and I'll choose whatever. But those are minor things. You know what, we get along. So the bottom line is, if we spent, we got married, it'd be 24 hours together. It's just going to be a better good. That's all. So I think so then when I remember we're having to make a decision because we moved up to northern Saskatchewan right away as a young married couple.
Yeah.
And when it's minus 40 outside, you're like, you're not going anywhere. there, you know. And so I remember we're cooking or we're doing laundry or like minor things. They're not like major issues, like life-changing issues. So I'm like, you don't put that spice in there, Ruth. Yes, you do. I do it this way or whatever it was. That's not how you do laundry. You don't fold it that way. You don't, and vice versa. It was both of us. And I think it was like, she doesn't agree with me? I thought she agreed with me. Oh my goodness, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. So,
Oh, totally. And I think I had expectations of myself. I thought I would be this amazing, amazing wife. Because you know how, as a young person, well, maybe men don't know, but women often dream about, oh, who's this person going to be? And what's it going to be like? And what's my house going to be like? And how am I going to do this relationship? And so I had all these expectations of myself that I would be so supportive, that I would be so joyful all the time. There would never be a conflict. Never.
Cookies, everything's just happy.
Wow.
Yes, exactly. And so I often let myself down, but if I had expectations on me, I'd even higher on him. And so I think, just that he would always protect me. He would always care for me. I would always be first in his eyes. And the romance, oh my goodness, he was so romantic. Every time he came to see me, he...
Don't say that. Because every guy that's in this camera is going, I hate that guy.
Like, come on, man. Really? Really?
But it is true. Sweet notes, flowers. Okay, so we get married, and we have this beautiful wedding, and this beautiful wedding night, and the next day we're at the buffet, and disappointment happened for us quickly in our marriage. And so we're at the buffet in the morning.
At the buffet?
No, not at the buffet. The buffet was amazing. So I hadn't eaten much the week prior to the wedding, which is common, I think, for a lot of women. And so I'm really enjoying...
You're trying to get into a -4 dress.
So I'm really enjoying the buffet. And then we were...
Ru, you weren't just enjoying it. You were there so long, the person, the maitre d' came there and said, would you like us to put a chair there for you to eat?
Goodness. Anyway, I enjoyed a full buffet. As we should. And then we were driving up to Nacuspot Springs, really windy road, and I felt really sick. I was getting car sick, and I was like, I'm going to be ill. So I was like, Dave, you got to pull over the car.
Ru, this car goes one place only.
But if you don't pull over, I'm going to throw up in the car.
Throw up, mess up the car, I pulled over.
Oh, it was all over, and I was thinking, oh man, not even married 12 hours or 24 hours, and I'm throwing up all over the place. So we get to our hotel, and I'm thinking, this is great. I'm just going to go in and clean up, and then we're going to go out, and we're going to have a really good day. And that's where our situation happened.
So we had a great hotel room, and I'm just kind of flicking through the channels, and I'm like, there's nothing on, and my mind's just going, and I can just hear this melodious music coming out of the bathroom. It's, I love Dave, he's my hero, whatever the song was. It was a top 10 in our and so I'm like, if we were in a sports team, and you're welcoming a rookie to the team, like, what would you do? Like, this is just some thinking that's going on. And I'm going to say later on, like, you don't have to say everything in your head. You don't have to do everything in your head. And so I'm like kind of looking around, and I go, there's a water basin in our room here. And then there's a garbage can. I bet you one of the greatest welcome to the team things would be is to fill it up with as cold of water as I can.
Ice cold.
Well, it was as cold water as I could. And I'd fill it up, and I would just like tiptoe in and just throw it on her and say, welcome to the team. So, great idea. I'm standing there at the basin filling this thing up, and I'm filling it and filling it. I'm like, not enough. Finally, I just get it right, turn it off, tiptoe, open the door, walk in, and she's just like singing that great song. He's my man. And I just open the curtains, and I go, welcome to the team, honey. And then I just run out, and I close the door, and I'm like, should I get naked now? Like, it's just going to be like just unbelievable. She's just going to love me so much for this moment.
Well, that was my most disappointing moment, because I was like, what happened? Who have I married?
Did I miss you with the water?
This person I thought would cherish me was, I just didn't understand it. I was like, what, is he crazy? What's going on here? And so that started I think for me, it was the first time I started questioning, did I make the right choice here? And we had only been married 24 hours. And as we talked about just as we worked through that one, obviously, and as we talked.
I worked through it. I slept on the bed beside us the whole night.
Well, yeah, 2 beds in the room. That's a mistake.
Please let me sleep with you. No, you stay over there.
Yeah, then going into our first year, he was so romantic all through our dating and whatever. And then our first year anniversary, I remember waking up and just going, hey, it's our anniversary. What are we going to do today? And can't wait. Let's go and explore. It's beautiful. The sun's out. And he responds with, it's
just another day.
Just
But it's like 3
another
a.m.
day.
Like she's opening the curtains and I'm like, let's sleep, like let's kiss, like do whatever, but not get up.
So just another day. And I think I was disappointed and concerned. Is this just going to be like you said before? Okay, now we're married. Now this is just normal life. Or do we keep the excitement of just that we're together and it's our anniversary? Anyway, I didn't know what to do. So I got dressed, got out and went for a walk. And so my response to that situation taught me a lot about myself. That when I was in a situation where I felt like, okay, I'm hurt and I'm angry and I'm disappointed, I started telling myself those lies of, I don't need love anyway. I don't need it anyway. It doesn't matter. I don't need it.
I've got my own dreams, my own goals. I'll focus more on that because I can achieve those.
Exactly.
This love thing is...
Yeah, and so then as I'm walking through the woods and I'm thinking, wait, I'm a teacher, I have all these kids, I work with relationships all day long. I should be able to manage this. What is going on? And so it started, I think, and this is one of the most beautiful things that's come out of relationships that are close, like a marriage, is you start to see who you really are inside and how you respond to things. And you start to realize the disappointment and maybe the disappointment I also caused in the relationship. And so we had to really stop and examine.
It kind of reveals who you are too.
Yeah, reveals. And then I had a decision to make. Okay, am I just going to keep fleeing every time he disappoints me? And I mean, it's 40 below. What am I doing? First of all, I was so stubborn. I was like, you better come find me because I'm not going home. And you can't drive your car because you can't start it. So you're out there. I'm walking in this remote.
Well, and I'm like, okay, go. And I'm like laying in bed and I can't sleep now.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And then she doesn't come back. She'll come back.
Yeah.
She loves me. She said she loved me. And then like time goes by. No, she's coming back. I know she's going to come back and she's going to apologize and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
Yeah.
well, man, what did I say? Like, and then you rehearse it. And that's the cool thing about the power of 3, right? The Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit starts working on your mind and your heart. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness, that was so stupid of me. Why did I say that? I didn't mean it. I really meant maybe something else, or if I did mean it, why did I say that? So then I got dressed, and I'm just chasing her around this forest.
It was wonderful.
Eventually tracked her down.
Stay away from me!
No, it was chase me more.
Yeah, you're like, the day just became exciting now.
Exactly.
It was change.
Yeah.
Well, and I think disappointment, if you have in your mind that conflict is not, that there's nothing that good that can come out of conflict, you're in trouble. Right. But conflict is common to all relationships. And so disappointment happens. It still happens in our relationship over time, but we're different people. And how we deal with conflict now is totally different too, because if we're in a really good place, like we're really connected, we're talking, communicating really well, then, we can go into a conflict and we can discuss it, we can hear each other, we can actually, sometimes like even this old conflicts, we can laugh about them and go, oh my goodness, who were we back then and why did that happen? But then not even that, it doesn't stop the momentum of our good marriage. It just keeps on going because we're in a really good place.
Yeah.
Now, if we have a really deep hurt that we've caused, or there's a deep disappointment, that's different. We handle that differently. We know we need to go, and I need to go before God and deal with it. I need to go, okay, God, I need your wisdom. I need your help. And not only that, I need to own what I've done. So what's my contribution? And we talk about this a lot when we speak at marriage conferences, owning my 1%, 100% of my 1%, if that's all it is. And then when I've done that and I've made things right with God, then we seek each other out. And so that's humbling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because nobody wants to seek the other out when they've been disappointed or frustrated or hurt.
Right.
But we don't let those things stop us. So we'll seek each other out, we'll mend, and then we find we can get right back into the momentum again. And so disappointment can actually be a real fuel for learning about yourself, but also a catalyst for change and growth. And
And I've learned through our renovation that we've been hunkering down in the basement for the last 3.5, 4 weeks, and I think we still have a couple weeks left. But we got this this house that's 20 some years old and things are falling apart, and you can live with it, right?
Right.
You know, we can live with some old habits, some old behaviors and things like that. But when we took down those kitchen cabinets that had been falling apart, that stovetop that, you know, was broken and things, but we were putting up with it.
Right.
That when we started replacing it and putting new things up, it's all great. You can look at it and you go, wow, that looks good. Like we've given ourselves a coat of paint. We went to a conference, those type of things. You can come back and go, great, now we're okay.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that the contractors leave stuff all over the place. So there's like wood and boxes and tools and all sorts of things. And you got to walk over that. And the reality is that's kind of like if you don't deal with those expectations, those things that you had, and you actually don't deal with it, you can look new, but in reality, you're tripping all over the place still. And you still can't even enjoy the new things until you clean up the mess that's around you. We're different.
So good.
Like
We are
we're
different.
so different. Like we
Yeah.
just see things different.
Yeah.
But it's been such a gift for us. And then Rushia said this, manage the expectations. You also have to manage the differences.
Yeah.
And realize that, you know what, there's these things about Rushia that I can
That
try.
you love.
Yeah, I do. Well, I do.
And then other things that you really love.
Exactly.
One or the other.
It's just all love.
Totally. Or you learn to love,
Or you learn to change.
Yeah.
You try
learn
to change.
adjust. Yes.
So we accommodate, and sometimes we try to eliminate, right? You know,
Yeah.
those type of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think actually where we've really, Risha's been so phenomenal at this. We have this, if you come to our house, Jordan, and actually any of you in the audience, if you come to your house for your birthday.
Which are all welcome.
Okay. And if you sleep at our house, you're going to get probably not going to be a knock at the door, and it's going to be really early in the morning, like I said. And it's going to be a group of people in our house singing you, and someone's going to be holding a platter with a birthday breakfast, and we're going to sing happy birthday.
Wow.
You're going to get that, and then you're going to get a cake in the evening probably. And during the cake, as the cake's been handed out, everyone around, whether you know the person or not. So Jordan, you come to our house, nobody knows you.
Yeah.
But everybody is required around the table to tell you something good about you.
Wow.
And so it could be
So
like
people are watching you.
That's right.
Studying. What's next?
Yeah,
What do I say?
totally,
Yes.
totally.
But we've had people visit our house, and that's happened, or family members, and they cry because they don't hear those things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for us is this, that we're different. So we either, just put up with it or accommodate or try to eliminate it. Or in the case of around the birthday, we celebrate it.
Yes.
We celebrate those differences. Like, I would never see the world that way. Thank you for bringing that to me.
Yeah.
That's good.
I know what I'm doing on my next birthday.
Come on over.
Staying at the Klassens. There we go.
There you go.
Incredible. Well, even what you just shared, there's something about your commitment. There's something about your heart posture, like something that drives you to want to deal with the crap, to push into that painful, uncomfortable area. Like, what is it that compels you? Because most people would just give up. And, then the marriage, goes through those stages of separation, whereas stonewalling is kind of the end result before it ends. And, what is it that compels you to, in the face of those big challenges and uncomfortable areas, to say, this needs to happen? I need to put myself before the Lord, own my crap, go seek them out, even though they hurt me, so that we can be on a good, what drives you?
Yeah, I think for us, I'll speak for me, but I think that for me, it's I know who we are and who we've brought into life, our children, are affected by who we choose to be and what we do every day. And I want to honor my God first and foremost, and nothing is impossible with Him.
Yeah.
So when He's stubborn, and when I'm stubborn,
You said it was about you.
yes, oops, when He's stubborn and when I'm stubborn, then
Could you say that again?
Yeah. when I'm stubborn, He's stubborn, then God's bigger than that. And I think having a heart that actually loves God deeply and has experienced that kind of love from God, why do I want to sit in that crap? Like, why do I want to sit in that pain? And I do sometimes because I want to hurt him or someone. But in the long run, really, I think Christ's love compels me to make things right. And he's given us a ministry of reconciliation. He's given us, he's told us you're ambassadors. So I'm saying, okay, who more to than our own children? And so, and to each other. And I made a promise and a commitment to this man that I'm sitting with. And I'm honoring that promise and commitment because I honor and love my God first. And that's why I got to go to God first. If I go to myself, I probably could justify all my actions and my attitudes, my wrong ones. But when I go to God, he humbles me, but he tells me again, you're my child. I love you. And this is how I see you. So because I see you like that, don't worry about what he just said or how he views you, because that can all be managed and cared for and healed. Through me. And so I think that for me, I think is the big thing, is it's not just us. We're in a bigger picture here. And I can't forget the bigger picture.
Right.
And that bigger picture is really important to me. And I don't want to hurt our family because I'm stubborn or because I couldn't forgive or...
And on the flip side too, in those moments, the wild thought is God saying, and he's my son, and I love him too. And you're like, really, God? Really? Are you sure? You see, because I think you agree with me on this one, Lord. He's a mess.
But God does discipline those he loves. Right. And so I just ask for an extra dose of discipline.
Lord, love him really well this time.
Exactly.
Discipline.
Hopefully not harshly. I think that I love the concept of why not fix it, right? But Rushia is so wise, we can't fix it a lot of times. Like, it's just like, well, why am
Human speaking.
Right, so young adults, why am I not married yet? Why am I, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Like, you might have some things, go internally and find out. Maybe there's some things that you're doing and find someone that can help you through those past issues and so on, those fears, those anxiety issues and so on. There's nothing wrong with you. God created you perfect. And so, do we have some things in our heads or some things that we've believed along the way that are wrong? Those happen all the time. Those happen in our world. It's a confusing world. It's complicated. It's like all these things aren't easy. And so I think for me, I remember when Rushia, there's kind of like the thing you don't want to happen when you're a new dad, and to be left alone with your child for an extended period of time. And Rushia set me up so many times this way.
I just knew you could do it. I had faith in you.
He can handle it.
He can handle it.
That's not true.
Guy.
She just wanted to go do something else, that's all. But anyway, she leaves me with my son, and everything's fine. We played, a myriad of games and all that types of things. And then the moment happens when I start to smell something different and things just aren't working well. And I'm like, son, you don't smell too good. And of course she's not answering. And I'm like, well, we'll just wait for your mom to get home. Right? And,
she'll know what to do.
Exactly.
It's like releasing a prisoner, it's just like, I'm never coming back,
Freedom.
But the way it's couched is, I'll be back in 10 minutes, but I'm never coming back. Right? So the 10 minutes goes by and,
we see things from different perspectives.
Oh, okay.
Time.
So I'm left with him, and then over time I'm like, okay, I guess it looks like your mom's not coming back for a while, and you get lumps are starting to form in that diaper.
Change that
and,
diaper.
I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be my big moment. I'm gonna do some adulting.
Exactly.
So father-ting or whatever you want to say. So bring him into the bedroom. I lay him on the floor. And I pull off, oh my gosh, son, chew your food. This is disgusting, right? So, and I remember swabbing him down, taking this 3-pound diaper and, putting it in the waste paper basket that filled and going, oh no, I forgot the diaper. And I'm like, okay, you just stay there, don't move, and so then you go into stealth mode, and I'm running to the bedroom. And I grab the diaper and I'm running back, and as I turn the corner to get to the bathroom, there's my son crying. I'm like, how can you be crying? I just took the worst diaper in the history of diapers off you, and you're crying. And so then, reliving it and thinking about it, I realized that he's not crying because he feels alone or he's separated from his mom or his dad. He's crying because he's cold. And yet so many times in our life, like whether it's within a relationship that's intimate and we've decided to get married and live the rest of our lives together, or you're a single person and you've chosen right now that this isn't the time for me to be with someone else, or I haven't found that person, we can live in a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And
It can get comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Yeah, we're used to it.
Totally.
It's familiar.
And so then all of a sudden, someone comes along, and I love this quote from, I think it's Jordan Peterson, who says, "Find someone that contends with you." You know, not someone similar, because if it's someone similar, then what do you need each other for?
Yeah.
Find someone that's
Kinda
going to
boring.
challenge you and push you.
Yeah.
So someone that's actually going to make you cold every once in a while. Because when you're cold, you might actually change and do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. Again, perfect kind of segue to the next question. What would be one of the most important life lessons that you've learned through marriage? Because, not everyone will get married. Marriage is becoming increasingly rare among 20s and even, early 30s. But there's lessons that you've learned from it that you can share with singles, with non-marrieds, that we could hopefully, benefit as well from what it's taught you.
One of the biggest ones, I think, is love is a choice. And so choose wisely and choose to love. And so, I don't want to take him for granted. I want to really see him, as you said before, he's God's child. And so he's a gift and a treasure. And I want to be his biggest cheerleader and encourager. Do I always do that? No, sadly. Do I always do that? No, sadly. But majority of times I try. And I think that, I believe I can be an influencer.
Well, actually, I was thinking, I think out of love, you over-challenge.
Oh, there you go.
But
Yeah.
I think it's still out of love.
Yeah, I think my motive is always best, maybe doesn't
Right.
always get delivered right. But coming
Yeah.
back and just being able to say, okay, my biggest lesson is, wow, I've learned so much about myself, and I long to be loved, and I long to give love. And I actually cannot do that if I am not whole myself. And so I got to go before God with all those areas that we talked about before, and I got to pursue wholeness regularly.
Yeah.
And in the pursuing of wholeness, then I can give freely and more fully, and receive freely and more fully, because I actually know who I am, and I know who I am in God's eyes first. That is very important to me. And for all you people listening, know who God says you are, and embrace that, and actually believe it, and live on that standard. And I think that's been one of the biggest things. I think the other thing is forgiveness is a catalyst for resolution. And so forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Made mistakes? Forgive yourself. Go there.
Yeah.
Go before God and choose to forgive your spouse. And I think there's a lot of people saying they don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm stubborn, and I don't ever, well, that's not true. Sometimes I do feel like saying sorry, but most of the time I'm like, no, I don't want to say sorry. I'll just wait till he says sorry.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, wait a minute. I also don't like the distance I feel between us, because I've known how connected we can be.
Yeah.
And I've known how connected I can be to, say, my siblings or my parents. And so I don't want to, I know forgiveness brings resolution and restoration. And so choose forgiveness. Those would be two things I would say that marriage has taught me. And there's no other relationship I've had in all my life that has forced me to see me, because I'm seeing him every day, right? Like I'm looking into his face every day, and he's looking back, and we have actually we've actually allowed each other space to say, have I disrespected you, Dave? Tell me where. Do you see something in me that I need to to examine or look at? Is that easy? Absolutely not.
That's a vulnerable space.
Oh my. But you know what?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, his honesty in the journey of parenting and the journey of our relationship, other relationships, has been invaluable for my personal growth. In just being able to, not always couched in complete love. Like,
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to share
Just
one.
made me
Very
look good.
diplomatic. I like that.
Yeah, I'm just going to share one story. So
Yeah,
we're
please.
getting ready for work in the morning.
Is this a good story for
It's a
me?
very good story.
Great
We're getting
story.
ready for work in the morning, and so things are hectic and crazy, and we're trying to
Yeah.
get ourselves, things are on our mind, lots of things, lots of commitments to get the kids places, and it's just crazy in the morning. It's busy, it's full. We're both in the bedroom, and we get into a discussion we should not have had at that time, and things are said, and harsh things are said, and
Was that like if Brady was going to win the Super Bowl, or?
we're not going there.
No.
And so then harsh things are said, but the time is ticking, and we got to get to these other commitments and places, and we are not going to deal with this now. And so he leaves, goes one way, I leave, I go the other way. We go off to our respective jobs. We come home, and I've been thinking about this all day. And we're going to have a conversation. We are going to talk. And so.
No, it's, you're going to listen. I'm going to
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah,
The way it
there's
works.
probably some of that. And so I walk into our bedroom, and on the bed is a note and a package. And I'm like, what? And so I pick up the package, and I open it up, and it's a bar of soap. And the note says, "Sometimes I should just wash out my own mouth. Dave." And, I've lived with him a long time, and you might think, wow, that's really odd. But you know what that was? It was so beautiful, because it was his step toward reconciliation, and it was done in a different way, maybe not the conventional, but it spoke to me, and it reminded me of his humor and of who he is, and it softened my approach, and we were able then, when he came home, we were able to restore. And I think, if you don't see that person every day, you can have that disagreement, and you can say, I'm never seeing you again.
And just fester and
Oh, yeah.
fester and fester.
And the world is full of broken, hurting people.
Yeah.
And not just
Because
in
of that.
marriages, like
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I gave him the soap when he came home, and then we had a really good discussion. I'm just kidding.
You wash out his mouth,
Yeah.
not ready.
Yeah, and then-
Yeah, there was a half a bar later.
so
You're not enough, not enough, not
yeah,
enough.
so I think the beautiful thing and what marriage has taught us is, you can, with God's help, step towards each other over and over and over again, and choose
Yeah.
love. Choose to love each other.
I love that they're both choices.
Yeah,
Choose love,
yeah,
choose forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like choice, in a sense, defies our feelings.
Right.
Because you don't feel like forgiving, you
No.
don't feel like loving. And I think, my generation, millennials, Gen Z, we are so feeling driven, it's nuts.
Right.
It's like our emotions are reality.
Right.
And so, if we don't feel like they deserve forgiveness, it's like, of course I'm not going to forgive them.
Right.
But then when you say, like, no, marriage taught me you need to choose it,
Yeah.
or else you're going to lose. Your marriage will grow apart. You will grow cold. You will be the 35 years married and not wanting to do this interview because you're like, no, we have nothing good to share.
Well, and the interesting thing I think too is, marriages do grow apart, and eventually some people do divorce, but that
Or they drift.
or they drift apart. But that person that didn't forgive is feeling just as much pain
Right.
as the person who was not forgiven.
Right.
And so we're lying to ourselves if we think, well, they don't deserve it. You actually are hurting yourself by that thought process. And so I think forgiveness is basically saying, look, I don't want to hold this against him anymore, and I'm not going to keep throwing it in his face every time we have a different disagreement, all the 35 years of stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, no, we're going to go before God and really make sure, like, we make changes. We sometimes set boundaries. We've sometimes had to reassess how we address things for it to be healthy, but it's real. It's real walking with people, not pretending.
And
Yeah.
probably in the early
Yeah.
years,
That's
there were things that we would come back to, or it would circle back, that discussion where you had that very heated discussion, and then words were said, and then it comes back, and then the forgiveness is granted, and then months later, or a year later, whatever it's going to be, a day later, you have this other discussion, and then someone says, just like before. And so one of the things that we actually started early was, you cannot bring back that which was old.
Yeah.
That which was
Start
forgiven
fresh.
was forgiven.
That's a ground rule. It's
Right.
like we've established that. So what happened in the past, that's off
Well,
limits.
when so much happened in the past, it was more actually what the forgiveness was granted
Right.
was now it's been granted to me or granted to Rushia. Therefore, I can't be held responsible for it anymore.
Right.
And I love the form,
huge.
Yeah.
right,
Well, and I think what it does too is it opens up a space for healing
right.
and a space for newness, freshness,
Yeah,
right?
to deal with the issue that's there,
The real issue right now.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the differences that we have, because we're both from competitive backgrounds,
Yes, we are.
so
We play a mean game of Settlers of Catan.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
And some
That's where it
others.
all comes
Yeah,
out.
exactly. Oh dear.
Or we'd converge at a soccer pitch, and
Yeah.
it'd be like we'd be coming from two different areas, pick up the kids after the game, and it'd be like, I'll race you home, so we're breaking speed barriers and all these things to be the winner, to claim winners. So that's part of our life.
Yeah.
But in a relationship, that's also a recipe for disaster.
Right.
They say
gotta one-up the
anger,
other, or-
right? Danger is only one letter away from anger, right? So the point is that if the problem is there and Rushia's over there and I'm here, then eventually I can look up at the problem and see her.
Right.
And then she becomes the problem. It's your fault. You did this. And the reality is we had to actually learn, and we had to be taught it, and we've had to employ it, is go, hold it here. How about we both come together on the same side and actually deal with the problem in front of us? Because actually we're way better at that. She's phenomenally intelligent. She sees things great.
More.
Right.
Tell me more.
But she has a great idea.
Yeah.
So we can contribute to the problem.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and I think that one thing that this really helped me, because Rushia, again, we're both verbal processors.
Yes, we are.
And she comes from a teaching background.
Yes, I do.
So the very first thing a lot of times that comes out when we're having a discussion is, these are 19 ideas on how to fix that problem, or here's what I think you should do. And so I think for me, the learning component is Rushia's not my enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when we went to our first conference.
That was huge.
The person from the platform said, turn to your spouse and look in their eyes and say, you're not my enemy. And I was like, come on, this is so stupid. That type of deal.
Kumbaya, whatever.
Right, exactly. And sure enough, and there have been many moments, whether it was
It's true. We've used it.
I'm frustrated and I come to Rushia, or she's frustrated and she comes to me, and either of us have said to her, look, I'm not your enemy. I'm on the same side with you.
Wow. Just disarms.
Yeah, and there's
much.
something that reminds you that a good marriage or a healthy marriage is hard work.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
in the battle of making this good, there's going to be things coming at us from all different angles, and spiritually, we believe the enemy is out to destroy too. So we got to realize, okay, if I believe he's the one attacking me, or he's out to destroy me, then I'm arming myself to protect myself from him, and I can't actually see anything else that's out there or my own,
Right.
where I've erred or.
Right.
So we've used that phrase over and over in the last. Well, we went to our first marriage conference at 7 years of marriage, and we thought we had an amazing marriage. And we went there and realized, wow, we had no idea.
Rushia's all the problem.
We had no idea.
She's the enemy.
Yeah, there you go. No.
Yeah, now that was out. It must be me.
Yeah, we had no idea that we actually it could be so much better.
Right.
Like so much better. And so I think what we have decided is we're never going to stop trying to make it better. And so again, like your question, how after 35 years? Well, because it just gets better. We just keep learning and growing, and I can say that in many, many different areas of our marriage, that I would say it's improved so much.
Right.
From communication to, there's just a whole oodles of things that
It's like your ability to simply enjoy the other person and not always feel at odds or tension. It's like, I just enjoy them.
And the safety of just knowing we're committed. Like that brings such a security and such a freedom to be, right? To be in this relationship, to be each other, to be free to be yourself with each other, which is really beautiful.
But there's a cost to it.
So good.
Yeah.
There's a cost. Like we said, we grew up in the Okanagan. Like I grew up in Kelowna, the land of peaches and beaches, right? So apple trees
so
are
good.
around me all the time.
Yeah.
And I worked in the orchards from young to my late teens. And it was always the same thing. Older trees produce the sweetest apples. They always did. They've been around for a while. And when you pulled an apple off
That's a good
there,
one.
Yeah.
they were sweet and luscious.
Yeah.
But those trees, what a lot of people didn't realize is they'd been pruned over all those
yeah.
years.
Right.
And so then some of that pruning, actually, you could see the results of it. There's things missing on that tree, and they actually weren't the prettiest looking tree. And and sometimes the best fruit was the tree. Right, exactly. Yeah. But no, I think in our marriage, you know what, we're older now, and things, and I'm not saying we're missing things, but I think there's been pruning along the way, and there's been weathering.
And certain things that should be missing that you're glad that they got pruned off.
Absolutely.
You're like, man, that was there for a long time, but
Very good, yes.
glad it's gone.
Well, and just to add to that, I think sometimes those people that are not influencing, but inflicting the pain of pruning into our lives are our children.
Oh yeah.
Because they've now grown up and they're adults themselves. And so we're in a different place. And they're maybe saying, hey, what about that? And what about that? Or, you know, we see this, and we're just like, you know what? That's actually really good. We don't always want to hear it. But we do want to be able to.
Well, so far it's only been you.
It's only my pretty. So, but we do.
It's not true. That's not true. No, it is actually. No, it's not true.
But we do want to actually say, you know, like, you know, that they actually love us enough to invest those kinds of conversations out of care.
Yeah.
And out of, you know, they want and they long for what we talked about, that, you know, how is your relationship going to affect us? So, Mom, I notice this in you. And so for me, when I'm critical, then I know I'm not walking with the Spirit. And so I know that about myself, but when other people see it in me, then I just go, oh, I got to get right with God. I got to get him back in the position he's supposed to be in, because if I'm critical, then he's going to experience it. My kids might see it. Now they're adults, they're saying, hey, I see it. And so then I can actually stop and deal with it, and humbling again. But again, basically they're just saying, you're part of my journey. And as part of your journey, Mom, I want you to continue to be all those things you've taught and modeled and shown and tried to instill in us.
The ideals that you communicated.
To each other. And so, we just have to hear people. We have to actually invite people into our journey that we're going to say, you know what? Speak to us. Tell us what you see. Tell us where we need to grow. And from each other.
There's this formula that I use with many athletes over time. It's called hard work over time equals consistency. Consistency over time equals confidence. And going back to the 10,000 hours, or going back to deliberate hard work, is that at the end of the day, we're trying to get a master's degree in each other. And
I like that.
And this hard work over time, this 10,000 hours to become an expert. In the early days, playing a piano or playing a violin or whatever, like, it's pretty scratchy. Like, it's out of tune. And I can guarantee if you saw us, we were totally
It's fun and exciting, but it's, you know.
And there's moments now with the world changing where we have new dynamics where we're working through. So it doesn't change. And so we're still a little bit scratchy at times and a little bit out of tune. Well, sorry, it's me. What am I saying? It's just
you know which one.
Every finger pointed at you, the audience, is three back at me. It's me. It's all me. But hard work. You know, that 10,000 hours and consistency. And the consistency over time has given us confidence. So that confidence that Rushia has over consistency of this relationship has spurred, you know, I can say for myself and potentially for her, that it's spurred me on to take more chances. Because I can have this confidence, but she's been able to encourage me because of consistency. So sometimes it's like I would have athletes go, well, you know, I'm having a real hard time, you know, I'm not scoring or I'm not doing this. And I go, okay, let's go back. Have you put the hard work in? I go to practice every day. Or no, I'm not going to practice. Well, you can't be consistent unless you put the time in. And so then it's like, well, I'm putting the hard work in. Are you consistent? No. Well, then what is it that you need to do in your work in order to become more consistent? Well, are you being consistent? Well, yeah. Well, maybe you don't have enough time. Because when you have enough time and consistency, like you score a goal every game, or you get an assist every game, or you do these things over time, you can start to become confident. And now you can start taking next steps to grow. And I think that's a really cool formula, like in any relationship, even as a single, is, okay, hard work. Like it's hard to be single. It's hard to go through this life not knowing. But take a step out, talk to someone. And again, I have no advice in regards to the different avenues, but because I don't want to, but the point is that spending that hard work, try and gain some consistency with that individual. So over time, you can know who that person is, and you can have confidence to marry them. You can have confidence that you know who they are. You can. So consistency is important. Look at their life. See what's consistent in their life. Look at who they are. And then therefore you can have confidence that the person you're marrying is actually the person being displayed in front of you.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like you guys kind of answered this next question already, just given what you just shared. But a lot of young people these days are advocating for more open relationships. That and even kind of like the scientific biological argument that we're wired to be open and not like monogamy is going against human nature kind of thing. And so young people are like, date around, date multiple people, don't get locked down into anything long term because that's limiting, and there's more for you to explore and experience, and so you don't want to tie yourself in. So for yourselves, having been committed now for 35 years in marriage, years before that dating, in hindsight, do you think that there's merit or value to the perspective of, don't get tied down, like it's also a good avenue to just be with as many people as you desire because it gives you that freedom, but how would you guys respond to that line of reasoning?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think, why are people pursuing relationships? Because they want to be known. Really known, like deeply known, deep
like
down.
At the depth of their...
At the total depth, they want to be known. They want to be known for who they are. They want to be challenged, encouraged, whatever. I don't think you can hop around from relationship to relationship. Like, I think I'm a complicated person, sadly, but it's true. Because
it is what it is.
It is what it is. It's
Can
kind
you
of,
repeat this?
it's kind of like what you said before, that we all have histories behind us, families and storylines and experiences and things that have impacted who we are. And we bring all of that. Like, I think, some of us bring a bag. Some of us bring a suitcase. Some of us bring a trunk. Some of us bring a whole house full of stuff into our relationships. And yet, when you're in a committed relationship that is going to be long term, then it's like, hey, you know what? I'm in this relationship with this guy, and I'm married to him, and we're committed. I'm going to unpack my bag. I'm actually going to unpack my bag. I'm going to pack every piece of that bag. I'm going to unpack those pains. I'm going to unpack that hurt. I'm going to unpack that lie. And I'm going to unpack it because kind of what Dave said about the consistency and the confidence, I have strength from the commitment, and all of that's part of the everyday, day in, day out, that says this is safe.
So the trust part.
Yeah, the trust part, and because of that, then I can actually examine each one of those areas and be whole and healthy and really, really known. And really, really known, and not just go, oh, you're not in it for the long haul? Oh, just wait, I'll pack up my bag again, put it back on, go to the next person, and the next, but by then my bag's gotten heavier and more full.
I was going to say, you bring stuff from each of those relationships, and it just keeps getting fuller.
Well, and if you think about, multiple relationships at a time, I don't know how this is working in this day and age, but how confusing and how wearisome and how overwhelmingly just the load would be incredible, because now, especially if you're a compassionate, caring person, now you want to help all those people that actually may have hurt you or may have because they broke your heart or because they weren't committed. And so I just go, oh man, wait, find the one that has the same value of commitment and the same value to cherish and love and faith in God, and start unpacking your lives together, and don't let go of each other. We have some crazy stories of how, in journeys of our lives, there's been times where our days were so full we hardly saw each other, but we've gotten creative at the end of the day, where it'd be like, when we see each other, we're gonna sign "I love you" from a distance, Yes, or when we meet each other and
Well, not totally like that.
when we meet each other
I
at
would never go. I would do it more like this.
Yeah, nice and discreet.
Yes,
just
but
pitching myself.
I saw it, right? I saw it. And then,
Yeah.
but there's times too you come into something and there's a lot of people and being able just to, we came up with this signal. When you sit down, it's like one squeeze, either of the hand, is I love you. 2 squeezes means I need you. 3 squeezes, 1, 2, 3, means I want you. So we can be anywhere.
5 squeezes means right now.
Okay.
And then
So-
6 squeezes means
Yeah.
let's get going. And then 7.
Okay, so in this long-term relationship, we've been able to create these signals and have these ways of connecting.
Personal connection.
Personal connections
Yeah.
that are very unique to us. And you hop from relationship to relationship to relationship. You don't get the opportunity to invest in creativity and to know each other at that depth, to know someone else at that depth. And I think you're robbing yourself.
Well, and not to add on to that,
So
but
good.
Yeah,
when you deal
Wow.
with your suitcase, your baggage,
yeah.
and then now you leave and go to someone else. Obviously, you just leave your baggage there, right? You don't have to take it with you, do you?
Oh, well, you probably do pick it back up, but you probably like to leave it
Yeah.
there.
If only I could just
You
leave
take
it.
my baggage.
And the only reason I'm asking is because I was just thinking of the illustration because sometimes Rushia and I would talk and we would just have a whole bunch of suitcases between us. So she'd be on a stool there and I'd be on a stool here with a whole bunch of suitcases. And then as we kind of start to share with one another, I just go, well, I wonder if, she would be okay if she knew that, I'm afraid sometimes. And so okay, well, I'm going to take a chance. And so I open it up, and it can't, and I have fear in my life. And then, she responds. And then we're able to move that bag away.
Right away, take it out.
But the reality is if you never have that intimacy, the long-term relationship,
Yeah.
where you gain trust, then that bag, you just carry that bag to the next relationship. And then that other person is carrying their bag to their. So eventually you go, how can you ever get close together?
Right.
Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
an interesting thing to picture it visually,
Yeah.
right? Like that we actually they're between us.
Yes.
And it's not just that I'm carrying it, but
Sometimes the room just fills up with baggage and you just
Yeah.
never deal with it, and you're just never going to experience intimacy because you just keep it there and it keeps building.
And I think you started really well with your question. I think they're right. I actually do. I think the world is right when they say what they said. The bottom line is have as many relationships as you can, experiment, do all
Pure
these
ones.
things. Yeah. No, but that's the perspective of you or someone else is going to solve all your problems. You or someone else is going to fulfill you. You or someone else is going to make you happy and to give you all these things.
Yeah.
And
that's all
so
you
then I
got.
ask the question, how's that working so far? And so I go,
yeah.
if you go God's perspective, and if you believe that God was the one that initiated marriage, he was the one that it was not good that man should be alone,
Yeah.
or it's not good that woman should be alone,
Yeah.
that 2 shall come together, that I want to be a part of that it's going to be 3 of us in this marriage, that you're not going to be able to do it by yourself, Adam. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself, Eve. That's why the 2 of you are together. Like, we're going to do this. It's a we issue,
Yeah.
not a world issue, which is, no, you go solve your problem and this is how you solve it. So I'm in agreement with you. You're right. The world's perspective is that's how they're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
I can handle it myself.
Yeah.
But I'm actually saying I can't handle it. Like I suck at it. Like I lived as a
Tried
non.
and failed.
Yeah, I lived as a non-believer. I was terrible at that,
Yeah.
and I'm still terrible at this.
No, you're pretty good.
Okay.
Honey. Yeah.
But I'm still terrible at it at times.
Yeah.
But I need God. So I'm actually, maybe I'm a weaker, and I'm saying, I believe what God had designed is good. And that God's got a great thing. Like, look what he's created here as my partner. And over time with him, we've learned to adapt and we've
Yeah.
learned to grow and we become more, that seems more holistic. That seems actually more perfect in a sense.
Right.
Now, again, my perspective. So I just go ahead, try it. And then then come back. because the reality is what God has put together is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
And the mother in me says, don't go out there and try all that.
Well, yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
tell you, you're going to get hurt.
And as you come back, be
Yeah.
prepared to have a lot more suitcases
Oh, yeah.
than you left with.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest keys in just life is you bring you to a relationship. So who are you?
Right.
Like, who are you really? And I think, you know what, so many, like we were 19 when we started dating and 21 or 22 when we got married. And did we even know who we were? Like, we probably couldn't even answer all those questions about what our values were and all those things. We've grown. But I think you as an individual need to know who you are and where you are in all those aspects. What are your values? Where do you stand? And are you willing to be whole emotionally? Are you willing to be whole spiritually? Are you willing to really know God, know Jesus at the depth of your being so that you can say, yeah, I've answered all those questions. I've taken care of those things. Now I'm bringing my whole self into this whole relationship, for a whole relationship.
Yeah.
And I think people aren't asking that question today.
Yeah.
I think people are just saying, wow, if I get a date, I must be lovable. No, wait a minute.
Right.
You're loved. So
Yeah.
now, out of that space,
you're already loved.
you're already loved. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you're already loved. So go live, I guess. Go live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Wow, I just wanted to say thank you, a huge thank you to both of you for your time, your wisdom, your experience. Like, this has been so rich. I'm sure people watching this will have to rewatch it 4 times over just to get all that there is from it. I just have a kind of a parting, closing question for the two of you. For all of the young people who are watching this and long for marriage, it's just like something they want someday, they're praying into, they're hoping for. What would you encourage them to do in this season of waiting, desiring, looking for the right opportunities? What can they be doing right now to prepare themselves for a meaningful life and eventually marriage potentially someday?
Well, I want to say one thing first is marriage does not complete you. That I think that is a lie that a lot of people buy into, thinking I'm not complete. I'm an incomplete person walking around. No, you can be complete with Jesus, with a relationship with Him. So embrace that, unpack that. What does that mean? Discover that, because He complements me, but He doesn't complete me. My Savior completes me. And so that's the first place I would jump off of. And the next would be become the whole person that God designed you to be. Discover who you are in Him and walk in that. And enjoy what God brings your way as far as discovering your personal dreams, skills, abilities, and be open. Be open to realizing, wow, you're an imperfect person, and so is the person you're going to marry. And so if you're waiting for Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, you will be disappointed.
Enjoy singleness.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll never find them.
Yes, because out there, whoever you enter into a committed relationship to, there's going to be things to unpack. And so do the work, do the time, unpack yours, and get ready to unpack somebody else's.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I love
Really
that.
good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I think be an initiator. Like, don't hold back. Like, I have asked this question, what's the worst that could happen? Like, at the end of the day, when you're just trying to get to know someone. So many times, like, we have people that I work with or people that are around us all the time, and I always say, just go say hi. What's the worst that could happen? And then just ask some questions. And you need 3 questions, actually, in a row to actually find out something about someone. So the first question is, how are you? Where are you from? And then, you're going to need at least a third and a fourth. And then ask some value questions. Like, what do you value? Why do you value it? Like, ask some character questions. Don't be afraid to go, hey, if you found $1 million, what would you do with it? And if it's all about, I would spend it on this and all that, and you go, well, you know where their priorities are. I give it to the poor. Well, what kind of poor would you give it to? So ask a question off a question, because all of us have an answer.
Yeah.
Like, you think about, do you believe in God? Well, I think there's a higher power. That was my answer all the time. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to interpret that. I couldn't even go any deeper than that, but it would stop people all the time. And they would never ask me question 2 or 3. So ask question 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And I think the reality is I believe in this slow and steady wins the race all the time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be like all in right away.
Yeah.
It's slow and steady. And you know what? I'm just putting my feet in here. I'm going to see what happens. Feels kind of cold. I don't know. See if things warm up. It feels really warm. Maybe I need to slow down. Slow and steady wins the race. And I look at the 3 years that we dated, and I go, I would not change that for anything. It took us to different parts of BC. It took us to different avenues. We learned all types of things about each other, and it put us in situations that actually I questioned her, like in the sense of, is she going to be like that her whole life?
I think that was more positive. I hope she's like that her whole life. She's amazing.
Sorry, I don't know why I said that. But I think it's the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Slow and steady wins that race, and we got to keep going. And the biggest one for me is I don't want to compromise what's in my life. And what's in my heart and in my life, the most important thing, before Rushia, is my relationship with God. So I have this mission, the same mission that Jesus had on earth, to glorify God with my life and my words. And sometimes my words aren't that good with her. And so you go back to the daughter thing, it's not even a thing for the daughter. It's actually, I'm not actually glorifying God with my words. And I need to stop that problem.
Yeah.
Okay? And at times, one of us has to be the adult in the relationship, because sometimes it's usually Rushia, because I act like the child.
Splashing water.
It just happened 6 times. But I mean, but glorify the Father with all your heart, soul, and mind.
Yeah.
And then do the work that He's asked you to do on this earth. And just go for it. And so I can do that whether I'm single, married, or if potentially one of us was to pass away. We're still going to do it. The reality is that's my focus.
Yeah. Incredible. You two, thank you so much again for your time. Yeah, this has been amazing. I know lots of people are going to be benefiting from what you have to share. And living healthier stories, writing their story that honors God, not living other people's stories, and seeing potential healthy marriages resulting. So thank you both again.
Thank you.
I told you she was the wise one.
This just proved it.
Keep saying. Keep saying.
You're the wise one.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. So, guys, this